a very different kind of video this week, folks. I hope you still like it. It's less a defined analysis than a series of thoughts I've been having as I've been watching the Friday the 13th series. As, you know, I basically think we all should. I am quite far into them now, and each time I sit down to watch another one, I kind of think, what am I doing here? Am I basically wasting my time? I mean, these are some of the worst reviewed horrors. These are often seen as like the downfall of horror. These are trash. These are disposable. Now, I think you can't understand Bond horror if you don't watch these trashy mega franchises of the 80s. I think they're very much a paradigm shift in horror that means you can very much start with them, but I think you can't skip them. But when you go to the massive 80s horror franchises, the Halloweens, the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Streets, Child's Play, you instantly hit a major problem.
There are too many of them. What are we going to do?
I mean, there are 12 Friday the 13ths. 12. The next Friday the 13th is going to be the 13th Friday the 13th. I messed up every take of that, so we're going to have to go with that. Like most of the slasher series, Friday the 13th has a very set formula, and there is a certain amount of diminishing returns here. What I'm wondering is, can you just watch a smattering of these and say fairly confidently, I've got it, I get the idea, I can talk pretty authoritatively about what Friday the 13th is about? The comparison I think of is the James Bond movies. With those, I feel fairly confident that I can say, yeah, watch 3 or 4, you basically get it. You're hitting pretty much all of the elements that are going to come up throughout the series. You've probably got it after about 4. And if that is true for Friday the 13th as well, then I just kind of have to worry, like, what am I doing this far into Jason Voorhees' body count? You know, that phrasing kind of conjures a different image these days, and I'm really regretting it. Ugh. And so in thinking about this, of how far into Friday the 13th is it worth going, I came up with 2 digressions, and because I'm feeling generous, I'm going to give you both of them. In Quentin Tarantino's latest film, and it's definitely one of my favourite of his, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there is a really amazing scene with Leonardo DiCaprio's character Rick Dalton. So Rick Dalton is on the set of a Western. He's reading this trashy Western novel. He basically calls it that. He says it's a trashy cowboy novel, and he's basically calling it disposable, low IQ pulp fiction, essentially. And he gets asked a few questions about it. And as he's answering them, he's thinking about the novel a bit more deeply, and he starts realizing that there's a lot more in it. There's a lot more that he finds compelling. He'd pretty much written it off as a disposable piece of entertainment, but just thinking about it a little bit, he found that there was so much more in it that was interesting to him, that was worth thinking about and worth exploring. Even if there wasn't ever going to be a masterpiece, he still found a lot in it. I think you see where I'm going with this. And the other digression I wanted to take is to the Martini bar. We're a big fan of martinis on this channel. You may have noticed, but for people who don't know, martinis are very simple drinks. They're basically as simple a cocktail as you can get. They are a basic grain spirit, either vodka or gin, and gin itself is basically just vodka that's been infused with a few standard ingredients. Aside from the spirit and the vermouth, which is the second ingredient, you can add an olive if you want a dirty martini. You can add some cocktail onions and a bit of the brine if you're making a Gibson. But otherwise, your martini is very restricted in what can go in it. I mean, you read about stuff like a French martini and it's got all sorts like pineapple juice in there, and that is a drink in a martini glass, but it is not a martini. And that is your martini, the vermouth and the grain spirit, and that's basically it. It is a very defined formula. Whichever martini you choose, it's going to be within that formula. You see where I'm going with this? What I'm trying to convey is that even within a really restrictive format, the choices you make will have a huge, huge impact. I'm thinking particularly of a night where I had my mind blown twice in a row, about an hour apart. I'm a big fan of martinis, I've had my share, and I was treating myself by going to a place that was very well known for doing them. I was absolutely blown away. I had the best martini of my life. I really just couldn't understand the massive leap in quality when I had my first one. I was thinking, what the heck have I been doing wrong all these years? It's still just a grain spirit and vermouth and a little bit of olive, but the way they put it together, the presentation, it was absolutely astounding. An hour later, going to a different bar within the same building, and that martini got completely dunked on. This place, in case you're interested and you want to have the best martini of your life, is the Duke's Hotel in London. The Duke's Bar itself is famous for its martinis. They have been using the same drinks cart for over 100 years. It is the most adorable vintage thing. It was brilliant. Ian Fleming did a lot of writing for the Bond series within the Duke's Bar, and so a lot of their martini menu is inspired by his works. There are various reasons why I can't remember exactly which one I tried, but my goodness, it was perfect. I think you probably get the point of both of those digressions. I mean, I hope I was clear. I mean, I should be. This is just water and lemon peel. It's kind of early when I'm recording, so I just wanted the prop, if I'm honest. With that said, we're probably ready to go back to our trashy derivative disposable horror series, right? I still haven't really solved the central question of how far into Friday the 13th is it worth going? With 3, I felt a certain point had been reached. 3 was really interesting in that was the first time you really saw the meme of Jason come together, the image of him that is probably in most of our heads. That's the first time he's got the jumpsuit, the hockey mask, and the machete all together. You should know that his appearances in the first 2 films are very, very different. So I'd say you probably have to get to 3 just to really see Jason as we come to think of him. But then I got on to 4, having really enjoyed 3, and that was interesting in that it was trying to move slightly away. We still had now the standard Jason, but it tried to take a different direction and it tried to close things off. Like 4 takes this really interesting dark turn. It's really disturbing in how it goes about things. The ending is really good, and so you get to that and you think, okay, this was worth it, that's fine. Number 5, Friday the 13th Part 5. Friday the 13th Part 5, I am not going to blame anyone for skipping. It was absolutely atrocious. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2 things that appeal to people, but otherwise, yeah, that one is for the bin. I have got nothing nice to say about it. It was a terrible film. I was kind of thinking I might be done with the series, thinking I've probably seen everything I need to in order to speak about Friday the 13th with some kind of authority. But I get to Part 6, and like Rick Dalton, I kept finding really interesting stuff. The title alone is super interesting. You just know in the background there was some executive saying, we really need to send out the signal that we messed up in Part 5. We are not going to go with a copycat again. We are bringing Jason back. And they wanted to signal it loud and clear, and so this is your title. This is very similar to Halloween 4, I think. They clearly had the same idea. And aside from that, I think it's also the series' first proper exploration of sort of meta-commentary and self-awareness.
For help. I was just kidding, Elizabeth.
Darren, we better turn around.
Why?
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
This is years and years before Scream, and the film is looking at itself with a kind of critical lens already. These moments of genre awareness and even sort of slightly sly fourth wall breaking commentary, little little jabs at the audience. I take them in really good humour, and they really livened up the film for me. They made it a really fun time.
Well, I ain't gonna touch this slimy sucker. Why'd I have to go and dig up Jason? Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
So as I was watching it, I was simultaneously talking about what I hoped they would do, what I really wanted from the film. And I was really chuffed that they actually went with something I said. I am not implying any causality here. It is a coincidence. After being genuinely scary at the start, they moved into more comedy horror, where you're really not meant to be that scared and not really meant to care about anyone all that much. And after that, what I was really hoping was that they would try and up the horror and try and make it genuinely scary at the end. And because we are back at the original campgrounds for part 6, they have a whole bunch of campers, and they are very young, they're children.
I promise. Go. Lie down. Stay there.
What do you think?
I think we're dead meat.
There's also some beautiful meta humour from them too, but moreover, the presence of the children actually represents a real opportunity for the film to get genuinely scary again. And I was really happy when they took that opportunity. It was a really smart decision. Because of that, part 6 ended up being maybe not my favourite of the original series, but a solid second, absolutely. Even if it's never going to be the highest quality film, I could always find something interesting in it. I could always find something making it worth my time. I might be overthinking it a little. I mean, I probably put more thought into that than anyone put into Friday the 13th Part 5. I think that shows. But you know how it is on this channel. Anyway, those were my thoughts on that. I hope you found it interesting. I'd also be really interested in hearing from people. How far are you into Friday the 13th? How far have you gone? How far would you say is worth it? I'm working on some much bigger videos for the end of the year, so it's kind of nice to have one that's a little easier on the old editing, a little easier on the old thinking there. Still, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you're liking what I do and you aren't subscribed already, please do subscribe. I'm a tiny channel, and every new subscriber is an absolute delight. And that is me for this week. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.